Welcome to Reconnect, the podcast dedicated to sharing and defending the good news of Jesus Christ. The word religion comes from two root words, re, again, and lig, connect. Together, religion means reconnect. The Bible reveals that it is through Jesus Christ alone that we are reconnected into a right relationship with God. Reconnect us, O Lord. All right, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Reconnect. As we share the gospel with the world, we inevitably will encounter people that will not like the arguments we give for the trustworthiness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Oftentimes, when we encounter people that call us out for making bad arguments, they will say that we are making fallacious arguments or logical fallacies. And when I've encountered this on my Facebook page, oftentimes atheists are using a lot of Latin terms when they do this, and it drives me then to go online and figure out what the heck they're even saying I'm doing wrong, because I don't even know the Latin behind it. If they gave me the English, I would at least probably have a clue of what they're trying to say. And so to help us all out on this, because I'm sure if you've been online any length of time, especially if you look at YouTube debates between, say, like William Lane Craig and Christopher Hitchens, both camps will be saying back and forth all sorts of logical fallacies, and I think we need to know just what these are in order to know if, one, they're even being committed, and two, if we are making these logical fallacies, we would want to correct that. So to help us out with that, I got my friend Paul Kasaty here with us. We're at the Lutheran Educators Conference 2014, Palm Springs. It's an amazing thing that these Lutheran teachers get to do every year that are in the Pacific Southwest District. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Andy. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of this and to share any insight I can help with.
Good. And just so you know, you were the first person to come to mind for
No
this
pressure.
idea.
No pressure.
Because I remember in college you were, was it the debate captain, or what's the title?
It was called the ethics team. So we had an ethics team. We did a philosophical ethics debate, essentially in kind of a team format, where we would take ethical kind of cases with an ethical dilemma in them, and we would study it. We would discuss it, consider sort of the various ethical implications of making different decisions. Maybe it's about like end of life issues, or maybe it's about water rights. I mean,
right.
Just kind of across the spectrum, and get ready to present and debate with another team on what we think would be the most justifiable or ethical thing to do in that case.
And if I remember correctly, as I was peeking in or eavesdropping on you preparing for one of these things or looking at your notes, to me it looked almost like mathematical equations laid out. If A, this, whatever, like, do you know some of what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So the part of what we did in that, and part of what we did elsewhere in things like logic courses and critical thinking is that stuff which generally falls into a category called formal logic, where we're putting form to these everyday language arguments, a form like in a statement like if you anger me, then I will run out of the room screaming, right? And if then, it has a form. It has that first part and the second part, and we have names for them and all sorts of things. And so that's formal logic. And in that area, there are formal fallacies of the form of an argument, where certain forms are just always fallacious.
Right.
Something like, if you anger me, I'm leaving the room. I left the room, therefore you must have angered me. Well, that's a fallacy. It's a mistake.
You maybe weren't necessarily angry. You just
Sure.
had to sneeze
or
fart or whatever.
Or we're done, or I'm hungry.
Yeah. You're making me mad. Could be a real option, but it's not always the case.
So those are formal fallacies. The form of the argument has a problem.
Okay.
And then the other kind of fallacies, kind of that we were talking about as we were kind of spitballing this, were these informal fallacies, where it's not necessarily the form of the structure, the argument itself. There's some aspect of the structure, but there's something else going wrong.
Right.
In the argument, there's some other problem.
Okay, so I never had the critical thinking class you were talking about. I transferred in.
All right.
For some reason, they took literature class I had, which was argumentative literature class, and accepted it as my critical thinking. So I never learned this stuff, to be honest. My lit class never had it. So I knew you did such a good job with the ethics debate. Eventually you got bumped up to teach.
Yeah, when I was later on, I ended up teaching a section of critical thinking at Concordia, and I had a great time doing that. Learned from some amazing professors there that taught me everything I know.
Awesome.
And then I ended up getting to learn from them directly as an instructor.
Cool.
So it was really good.
And just to clarify for everyone listening, it's Concordia University, Irvine.
I forgot. Yeah,
California.
That probably needs to be said.
There are a lot of Concordias, and I just spoke to someone who is a recruiter for a Concordia in Shanghai, which is actually a high school there, but still Lutheran.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's dig into some of this. I thought the best way to go about it was to actually use an atheist bringing up what he would say are common fallacies of logic that he hears religious people use. He's not saying just Christians, he's saying the religious. And I just got his top 10. I don't even know who the blogger is, but the site is godbegone.blogspot.com. The article he had was top 10 logical fallacies used by religion. This was posted on August 31st, 2007. So here's how he starts his little article. For those who don't know, a logical fallacy is a flawed pattern of reasoning. And that's basically what you said, right?
Yeah.
Something which the religious are professionals at. In this post...
We're all professionals at using these.
Okay. In this post, I'm going to list my favorite 10 logical fallacies used by the religious in arguments. I'll also post their meaning and an example of what the fallacy may look like when used in an argument. I'm sure most of you free thinkers will recognize many of these from past discussions with religious people. I note that term free thinkers. Have you ever heard someone use that?
I've used it in a variety I've heard it in a variety of contexts, not necessarily probably the way, it sounds like he means it in some specialized way of, free thinkers are people who recognize the issues with religion or whatever he's referring to. I haven't heard it used specifically in that way, at least not regularly, but all right, I'll roll with it.
So I'm going to look into that because I'm actually interested to know if this is some new term they're trying to put out there. All right, so his number one, and you're going to have to help me on the Latin because this is one reason why I give up on this stuff because I see this and I'm like, why? But it's Argumentum ad ignorantium?
Ignorantium, I believe. Ignorantium? I took, how many semesters of Latin did I take? None. So, I'll do my best, but I'm learning all these pronunciations. I learned them as I was in not a Latin class, just learning about informal fallacies. So I don't have a whole lot more experience, but that's what I'd say. Argumentum ad ignorantium.
Okay, now I get argument, and then ad, is that from? Or
from is how I've always heard it translated.
Ignorance, right?
Yeah, okay. Argument from ignorance.
So what does it mean then for argument from ignorance? His suggestion is an example here that he often hears is if you can't prove that God doesn't exist, that means he must exist.
Sure.
So is that a fallacy, is he saying?
Yeah, so he's talking about this fallacy where we use the fact that we can't or haven't proven something false to say that it's true, right? So he says, you can't prove God doesn't exist, that means he must exist. We could say, you can't prove that the building doesn't lock down at 6, so it must lock down at 6. Anything that you can't or hasn't yet been proven, as evidence for the opposite.
Okay. Would this be similar to argument from silence? Or is it different? Because I've heard argument from silence as something that people will say.
Argument from silence. Well, tell me a little bit more about where do you hear argument from silence?
And this would when I've heard this, it's honestly one's not coming to mind right now. But the idea is the Bible doesn't say this. Right?
Okay.
So, like, for instance, there are no infant baptisms in the Bible.
Sure.
The Bible does not command infant baptism, right? So it's an argument from silence. The Bible doesn't say, but then you move into this other realm where it's like, well, it doesn't not say either.
Right.
Is that kind of this?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know, but we don't know. So because we don't know, you're saying that
it's sort of along the same lines where we have we say that since we don't hear one thing, the other thing must be true, or since we hear, it's kind of along those same lines. When we talk about these fallacies, I've taught them in a number of ways, and I've read about them in a number of ways, and actually, as we're here at the Lutheran Educators Conference, one of the things that I like to focus on. That one of my sessions today happened to hit on is, I don't like to spend too much of my time focusing on something that Siri can answer, or OK Google, or whatever, your search engine of choice can answer. It's like, all right, so I don't know what this Latin means, and maybe I forgot what an argument from ignorance is, but, I can Google it while I'm talking to somebody and, oh, okay, so you're saying, and so what I like to focus on with these is more of like, all right, what's the underlying issue? Argument from ignorance. What's underneath that? What's kind of a broader categorical kind of problem with an argument? And so an argument from ignorance, is, we have, our arguments, that kind of fall into, general broad category of presumption.
okay,
Where you're presuming one thing to be true.
because you can't prove the other.
Yeah. Now, actually, argument from ignorance isn't always put under the category of argument from presumption. It's often called an argument of or a fallacy of relevance.
Okay.
So we have presumption, we have relevance, we have clarity. Kind of these are one textbook might separate them in those three ways. We have arguments of clarity where you're saying a fallacy of doing something to make an argument less clear.
Okay.
Makes it true because no one can figure out what's going on, or presumption, assuming something to be true that you shouldn't have assumed, or in this case, relevance. Argument from ignorance would usually be called a fallacy of relevance, where you're saying something irrelevant proves your case. In this case, it isn't relevant.
Gotcha.
Whether something's yet been or can be proven true or false. It isn't directly relevant to its truth or falsity. I know that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter whether you've looked in my back seat to see how many pairs of my 3-year-old's dirty socks are in there. It is true or false that there are dirty socks in the back seat of my car.
Right. Gotcha.
Ignorance doesn't make it, doesn't make the case either way.
Yeah. Got it. That sounds good. His second one, Argumentum ad misericordia.
Yep, misericordia. All right.
And he says it's appealing to pity.
Sure.
That sounds more like misery.
Misery, pity. Yeah. It's funny. This one, when I see it, I don't immediately think of religious arguments. I immediately think of students.
Yeah. Why are you giving me this much homework?
Yeah,
Don't you know that it's Thanksgiving break?
That's
or whatever?
right. That's right. Or I know I didn't turn that assignment in, and I know I didn't study for the test, but
I have college apps.
Exactly. My family's coming in for graduation. How can you tell me I might not graduate? Well, because you did. Mm-hmm. That isn't relevant. It's another relevance.
Thought about that before you decided not to take the final test.
That's right. It's another relevance issue where I think that something about my situation that you should feel sorry for, means my argument is better.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. So that he gives is, why are you so intent on destroying something that makes so many sick children happy? This one I just think about the evil sort of guy who is bah humbug about Santa Claus going through and popping all the little kids' bubble. Santa Claus isn't real. But could this be a flip side where Christians... By the way,
listeners, we should probably put in a little warning to turn it off if your children are in the room.
They should know better. Why are you teaching your kids that Santa Claus is real? You're lying and deceiving them. Anyways, I'll probably teach my little girl about Santa Claus. Satan Claus. Sorry, I don't know why I said. Oh, okay, so what I was going to say, this argument for misery, could it be flip side, where instead of me basically making a pity party argument for myself, talking to the atheist, look at your worldview. If your worldview is true, it means you're dead and gone. You no longer exist. Doesn't that make you feel miserable? Do you have any hope in life? Does it provide you anything, any reason to live, any reason to do good? Doesn't it leave us in a state of misery and hope and hopelessness and despair? Like, does that make sense? Am I doing the same thing by that argument?
It is. So you're saying that because of
own desire,
because of something that gives them a sense of pity, or other people should feel sorry for you because of your worldview and your belief. Therefore, you should come to believe mine. Well, if we're talking about, what evidence, verifiable, true, false, then it shouldn't matter whether their worldview is horribly sad.
Yeah.
We shouldn't.
That doesn't make it wrong.
Right. We shouldn't stop teaching about slavery or the Civil War or the Holocaust or whatever because it's really sad.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it could be good to point out, this is what your worldview actually says.
Yeah.
And then you say, why do you believe it? But if I were to simply say, your worldview's wrong because it offers no hope after the grave, then that's not necessarily...
So the way
that
you
would be a bad argument.
Correct. The way you just phrased it would be, I would say, don't do that. Your worldview is wrong because it gives you no hope. Well, there could be a worldview that's right and gives no hope.
And for them, it could be hope.
And there could be a worldview that's wrong.
Nothingness is good to me.
Yeah, there could be a worldview that's wrong and does give hope. It's that direct connection. So it's an illegitimate appeal to pity.
Okay.
Pity sometimes should be appealed to.
Yeah.
But it's that when it becomes illegitimate. So,
think about
I'm sorry
children.
I was late. My daughter was terribly sick this morning, and my work has a late policy, and my boss says, "Oh my gosh, I've been there. Stay a few minutes extra, no problem." And it's not that it was okay for me to be late. It's not that our late policy no longer exists. It's just
you were explaining yourself,
exactly,
and it's the person got it.
But that's different from the saying that because your beliefs are sad and offer no hope, therefore they're wrong.
Right.
That's the illegitimate appeal.
So we need to avoid that. I don't know who makes it, like you said. I don't hear this usually done by Christians. Argumentum ad nauseam is number 3. And it sounds like nauseous.
Yeah.
It makes me want to puke.
Sure.
Right? So this just disgusts me.
Sure. Say it over and over and over till I can't stand hearing it anymore.
Gotcha. So this is like the little kid almost asking for something from the parent again and again and again until the parent just like, fine.
Sure.
But here the example is God exists. How many times do I have to tell you?
Sure. This is, I went to Concordia, but even at Concordia, I sometimes found myself in these shoes, or I often ran into other students in a position where they're absolutely sure about their beliefs. Why? Because I've been told that they're true every week or every day or every couple of weeks for my whole life. No one ever told me why they're true. Nobody ever explained why they believe what they believe. They just said, this is what I believe over and over and over again in Sunday school and in church and in a religious school or whatever. There's no actual argument behind it. If we're getting to sort of the apologetic side,
right.
It's not to say that it constantly has to be in the form of an argument. But when you get into the apologetic side, why do you believe what you believe? What makes you think it's true? Right. Well, I think it's true because I heard someone tell me every week that it is.
So it's like, if you say a lie long enough, it becomes a truth.
Okay.
That's what this is basically potentially falling into. Or is the flip side?
No, it is. It's if you say something often enough, it sounds true. Yeah. It sounds reasonable. It sounds fine. Just
to clarify though, something that came to mind here, just because we use these fallacious arguments doesn't necessarily mean that our premise is false. Because the people you're talking about, yes, Jesus is God, right? He did die for our sins. I would show that to you evidentially through his life, death, and resurrection, grounded in our physical time and space and history that can be evaluated through commonly accepted means of evaluating history to see what most likely occurred in the Jerusalem area 30 AD.
Right.
That's true, but if all I have is because I've been told that every day, that would be a fallacious argument, but it doesn't necessarily mean that
the conclusion
the conclusion itself.
Right. Yeah. And that's true of any fallacy, formal or informal. You're not saying the conclusion is false. What you're saying is that the argument is flawed.
Yeah.
So you can have a valid argument that has a false conclusion. You can have an invalid argument that has a true conclusion. You can have all sorts of these combinations. So here, where we say something over and over and hear it often enough that we think that hearing it a bunch of times becomes evidence for the conclusion that it's true. Well, the conclusion, it's saying, oh, that's a fallacy, doesn't say that the conclusion's true or false. It just says we need different reasons.
Yeah.
We need a different argument.
Good. Awesome. Another one here. Argumentum ad novitatem? Novitatum?
Novitatum is probably how I'd pronounce it.
This would be innovation?
Yeah, like novelty maybe is the word I would use. I'm not sure if that's really where the Latin's going, but it's what it reminds me of, so that's how I remember it.
Cool. And so this one is, of course, Islam is the true religion. Muhammad is the most recent prophet. And I would say no, Joseph Smith
that's
is.
What I was going to say. Say that to a Mormon, man. Come on, get your history right.
Okay, so the latest is not the greatest.
Right. Well, yeah, it's saying something is good because it's new or something is true because it's new. Again, irrelevant how new or old it is, right? But
and at least in terms of Christianity, let's just say Christianity alone, discussion amongst Christians, we would say the oldest is the best. We would go back, what did the apostles say and do? What's revealed in Scripture in the first century in the text written down to us, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Let me think about this before I get
obviously we don't want to take everything they did and apply, we must be doing that in the 21st century.
Right. I still don't think that it's better because it's older. I don't think the year it was said is what makes it relevant other than to say that happens to be when this person lived, the person who said it. Jesus said it. Okay. When did Jesus live? Oh, all right, it's old. Yeah. But it's not that it's old. It wouldn't have mattered what year Jesus showed up.
I guess what I mean is like if the Apostle Paul said it here in 1 Corinthians, and then he says, if someone comes to you preaching another gospel, or an angel preaching another gospel, other than what I first told you, don't listen to it. Let it be eternally damned. Right.
And there, I don't think what he's saying is don't listen to it because it's newer. I think he's saying don't listen to it because it's wrong. Because I'm telling you what's true.
But if it is actually new, then it would be wrong in this case because it would be a different gospel. Sure. Because you can't make a new gospel.
Sure. But I think we're using new in a different sense now. Okay. I think we're using new in the sense of different from the original unadulterated one. Good. Whereas I think this fallacy is more about new temporal, like time, like it just came up, therefore it's better. It's a better argument.
So avoid that.
Yeah, right. Sure. And I don't.
My denomination was just birthed last year.
Sure.
We must be correct.
And as a Christian, I would say we probably use this one in reverse more. Muhammad is the most recent prophet. We might go the other way. Well, hey, wait a minute. He's basing it on something older, and the older must be truer. Well, okay.
Which like, we got Martin Luther, Reformation. Well, he came after, Pope Boniface the First or whatever, or Pope Leo. So we gotta discredit him because he's later. That so
we run into trouble when we think something is right simply because of time. Yeah, because it came before or after something else.
So contemporary worship. That's a whole nother
So what's the next fallacy now? Let's
wrap up this segment on number 5, and then we'll be in the middle to end this first segment. So argumentum ad populum.
Okay, something is correct because of how many people believe it.
How many likes are on your Facebook page?
That's right. That's right.
How many followers do you have on Twitter?
Absolutely.
All right, so the example he gives. Look how many people believe in Jesus. They can't all be wrong. Have you heard this before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I've heard a variation.
What's the variation?
The variation I heard was a presentation on the Bible. It's the #1 bestseller in history. And they were using that in the sense of it's that alone points to its truthfulness because it's been bought so much.
Interesting.
Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't heard it put quite that way.
Or it's been translated to the most languages. It's the most this.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, and because of that, it's so popular. It's so widespread. So that points to its truthfulness.
Well, okay. I believe when I was in college, I took classical guitar, and my classical guitar instructor told me something I didn't know. He said the song "Yesterday" is the most rearranged song of all time. So the Beatles write "Yesterday" for their band, but then there's tons of classical guitar versions. There are piano versions, organ. I mean, pretty much any instrument or vocal setting you can think of, choral, a cappella, kazoo, anything. There's a version of "Yesterday."
Jew's harp. Yeah.
So because it's been rearranged more times than anything else, my troubles really are here today, right? Because yesterday seemed so far away. It doesn't make the song truer, because it's been rearranged more times. Absolutely. It doesn't make right. Argumentum ad populum. It might be a fallacy. That's a good reason why there are very few pure democracies in the world, right? We don't all vote on laws and whichever one has more votes. We have representatives and we have a constitution and we have branches of government and we have, saying something is true simply because most people vote for it is kind of a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Very good point. All right. Well, we'll close there. We'll take a break. We'll come back and wrap up the next 5 top 10 fallacies made by the religious.
Many different people have many different opinions about the person and work of Jesus Christ. Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, believe Jesus is our spirit brother, along with Lucifer. Jehovah's Witnesses believe Jesus is actually Michael the Archangel. Muslims believe Jesus was the precursor prophet to Muhammad. Scientologists believe that Jesus was a tool for mind corruption. But what should you believe about Jesus? Better yet, how do you talk about him among these other views? Robot Jesus and 3 Other Jesuses You Never Knew is a book authored by me, Kyle Bashirs, that explores how Jesus is viewed within Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, Islam, and Scientology for the purpose of aiding fruitful dialogue about the gospel. It's available now on Amazon in paperback and Kindle editions. Check out dearephesus.org for a free chapter. That's dearephesus.org, and just click on the resource tab. There are many different Jesuses in the world. Are you prepared to give an account for the Savior Jesus?
All right, part 2, continuing on here, looking at logical fallacies, which are any time we make any arguments that have some sort of flawed pattern in reasoning, not a justifiable argument to support a premise or conclusion. So we don't want these when we are sharing the gospel. We want to defend the gospel on grounds that have solid foundations in logic. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Logic comes from that truth. And so we want to build upon that truth of Christ, and not use things which are flimsy and faulty and can easily be knocked down, because that would be bad for our own faith. This is really for ourselves. Apologetics is defending the faith. And when we think about defense, if we have really bad arguments, like Paul mentioned in the last time, I believe this because I've heard it all my life. When someone really comes smack on with something which is contrary to Christ, and they hear that that person has heard it all their life, you really come to realize that I need something more to go on. So we want to uproot these fallacies, and also do it for the sake of maybe getting the beeswax out of the ears of some non-believers, like the guy that we're looking at from godbegone.blogspot.com. Last segment, Paul, we're talking about how you've actually taught these in class, and you were a star player, at least that's how I view it, on an ethics debate team. So just want to see like where you are now. How are you still using what you learned at Concordia Irvine to educate the kingdom of Christ?
Well, I'm down at Lutheran High School, San Diego now, dean of students, and I teach some upper division English courses, American Lit, Brit Lit, that kind of stuff, AP. Just having a lot of fun, trying to continue to teach students to argue. It's, teaching literature, but also teaching them to write about it and think about it and process, and just having a lot of fun doing it.
So when a student ends up in your office, if they can make a good argument to support their misbehavior, do you ever let them off the hook? Because you're like, at least you did not make a fallacious argument.
If they can make a sound argument, then they're right.
Okay.
So sure. But that's rare. They're high school students. Most of the time they're appealing to pity. We talked about a little earlier, or, something not even that good. Just kind of like, what do you got for me?
Gotcha.
What happens now?
All right. Well, let's keep going at these. Number 6, very interesting. I don't think I've usually heard it presented, with this title. It's bifurcation.
Yeah, false dilemma.
False dilemma is what I usually hear. The false dilemma given here by the guy is that he says he hears the religious say evolution is wrong, so that means creationism is right. And I think the problem there is the person's trying to say you're only giving 2 options when there could be a 3rd option or 4th option or more to consider.
Absolutely.
So what would be another option besides evolution or creation? Can you think of one?
Absolutely. Well, it depends how we define.
I got one in mind, but I don't.
It depends how we define the terms. One of the big problems with bifurcation is defining terms, right? So, evolution meaning a slow process by which non-life became simple life, became more complex life, became human life over millions or billions of years, is wrong. So that means creationism, meaning a young earth where an active God spoke everything into existence in 7 solar days, even the ones
6.
before the sun. Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
There's the whole day of rest.
That's like my trick question in a doctrine class. How many days? And I always have 6 and 7. It's just a trick question.
It's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Fine. Okay. I bow to your expertise in 6 solar days, including the ones before the sun.
Yes.
That evolution in the way we just described is wrong, so that means creationism in the way I described is right. Well, clearly we know that there are other creation accounts from other religions. There are other views of evolution. There are,
Theistic
punctuated
evolution.
Equilibrium, where it's not a slow process. It's a long period of nothing and then strong changes in short time.
Explosive evolution is, I think, the term I've heard for it.
So, yeah, there aren't just 2 specific textbooks that say, that present the case in different ways. There are lots of gradations of views on how all this happened.
Right. Good. So a lot more options. I'd like to just talk on this one a little bit. This is actually the one that got me to think about needing this show.
Okay.
So on my Contradict, They Can't All Be True Facebook page, I oftentimes will post something that will then say, give a statement. Jesus is God or Jesus is not God. They can't both be true. I'll pull out a couple different examples like that. This one atheist that regularly will post on the page, when I posted Jesus is God or Jesus is not God, threw out false dilemma. I was like, what? And first, I actually did have to look up what exactly does he mean, because I was like, how's this a false dilemma? And basically it was, I'm not covering enough options. There's something else out there. And it hit me, definition, like you're saying. Okay, how am I defining God? Am I defining God like the Hindu would define God? If so, then, yeah, there are more options than just Jesus is God, right? Jesus is God as in the divine essence is in the heart of all things, so everything is divine? Or is he the transcendent Son of God, eternal, not created, not made type thing? So when I threw that out to him,
Yeah, sure.
he pretty much was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, okay, you get it. Have you heard of, this one is called bifur, or is it bifur? Do you know?
I've heard it pronounced both ways. I say bifurcation.
Okay, so bifurcation. This isn't the only option for false dilemma. We could have different numbers, right? Like trilemma. Have you ever heard people say C.S. Lewis's, Jesus was, either
Crazy,
a liar, a lunatic, or Lord, is technically a false dilemma because there are more options. You're only giving 3.
And there are more than those 3.
More than those 3.
He may have been a sane, honest, non-God.
Yeah.
Or something, because there's some other explanation.
But then he would... No, I don't know if that's it. Sane, honest. I think he was basically making a point you can't be sane and honest, right? And not be God.
If you're claiming to be God.
If you're claiming to be God.
Sure.
To your death.
Yeah, so
like,
I'm not gonna, it's not something I've heard, and so I'm not gonna take on C.S. Lewis off the cuff at all. Well, but, that's what that would mean to me. If someone said, C.S. Lewis is making a false kind of, backing you into a corner, my question would be, what are the other options?
Right.
If there are more options than that he can't be all 3, what are they?
Which I think this is an important one, because I think this is one that comes up a lot. If you go on YouTube and just search C.S. Lewis trilemma, or even false trilemma C.S. Lewis, you will see a lot of non-Christians posting these other options. So I think that's a good way to figure out what to prepare for.
Okay.
Especially when people throw out these, quote, fallacies, right?
Sure.
But I like to argue with them. C.S. Lewis actually argued more options. First, he started with myth. First, he was arguing. Historically, we know he was a real person. Once he does that argument, he then moves into what did he say. So he already erased the myth one.
Right,
that some people would use.
Sure.
Also, in that same text, he says he was a Jew. He was not arguing as the pantheist would. So he already was saying, he wasn't saying, I'm God as we all are God, because he was a Jewish rabbi who quoted scripture from the Bible, not like the Vedas. And then also in there, in that same thing, he said, we can spit at him as a demon, right? Or it's something like he threw in demon as an option. So you either have to say he's a demon or he's Lord, which I thought was a whole other option, how to argue is he a demon or not. But that's just one I like to spend a little time on, because I think we encounter it a lot. So just make sure whenever we're doing this, try to cover the other options.
Sure.
And if someone throws out another option, play with them on it. Especially on the Jesus one. Who do you say I am? That's what Jesus did himself.
Yeah, I totally, and I think that's a big key. Is we want this to be when I encounter this, I want this to be conversational. I want someone to say, "Hang on, why are those the only 2 options?" And vice versa. I want to say to godbegone.blogspot.com, for example. In his little intro, he sort of says that religious professionals are flawed in their reasoning versus free thinkers who recognize fallacious patterns. And I want to say, well, aren't there aren't there like non-religious people who use fallacies and religious people with things like PhDs in philosophy who teach logic and reasoning and tend to avoid these fallacies?
Yeah, and even here, a logical fallacy is a flawed pattern of reasoning. So it's a pattern, and we're talking about formal reasoning. It's form. So how free thinking is it if you're actually having to follow patterns? And and so he's already. It's how you define terms. But anyways, let's move on here. This is a really good one. This one I hear all the time from people throwing out, and sometimes it's hard for me to always spot if this is actually a fallacy when people say it is. An example of one, and that's circular logic.
Okay. Circular reasoning,
the premise that what you are trying to prove is evidence of itself. And the one he gives is that the Bible is the Word of God because it says it is. And it can't be wrong because, after all, it is the Word of God.
Right. So circular logic, this pattern where we define our terms in a way that says our terms are defined correctly, or there are different kind of ways that it looks, but this one can be tricky because the circle can sometimes be quite large. Right.
Oh, that's
so
why
it can be a very small circle. It can be an equal sign. It can be A equals A. A is identical to A. A tautology is what the fancy word for that is. But it can also
kind of what he did here.
Yeah, sure. And it can be a much larger circle. So this one, if this is the case he wants to make, really is a much larger circle because it's like saying that the library or my bookshelf full of books. The Bible is a compilation of a bunch of stuff. So there is to say if the Bible says the Bible's true, then the Bible's true is all internal. Well, okay, but there are a bunch of different writings from different times and different people in different places. So
these are independent sources. Is what you're arguing.
Well,
separate books,
sure,
separate authors.
Sure, to some degree at least. But it doesn't mean that
so that's
not
one way
circular.
to get out of this, even.
Right, and he might come back and say you're just making your circle bigger.
Yeah.
Right. He might still say it's a circle, but,
and then he said, yeah, but they're all Christians. And I would say, so being Christian means I have to automatically be wrong?
Okay.
Would that be a fallacy that he's making there? By saying, well, they're all Christians. I'm not going to accept that you got multiple independent sources from eyewitness sources, even when it comes to the Gospels.
Yeah.
They're believers, so I'm not going to credit them. So what, you need a non-believer who's what? Going to say what you want to believe? Is he making a fallacy by
right?
Not
well,
accepting my source
if the person you're talking to simply writes off the truth of a document because of the belief of its author, that's running into some trouble too, logically, but this problem of circular logic. Really what I think he's after here and what we want to avoid is, kind of saying once you're in the club, you'll figure out that the stuff that we believe is God's word is true because it says it's true. Mm-hmm. We want some external verification, and and if that can come from outside of the Bible or even outside of Christianity, great. It gives us some, then it can give us some other things to say, well, hang on, other people are saying the same stuff happened.
Right. They affirm the events.
Right.
So it adds, but if we didn't have that, we still got the goods.
Well, if we didn't have that,
it
have really still gets
outside from non-believers.
It still gets back to what we said in the last segment, which is that it doesn't make the conclusion false.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
It's a bad argument. It's not meaning it's not a particularly convincing one. But it doesn't mean the conclusion's necessarily false.
Can you think of any that atheists or even some other religious worldviews may have, which are usually circular and logic?
Let me see if I remember this one. It's been years since I looked at any of this. I wrote a paper on one in college. I read an essay by, I don't remember who, on miracles.
We can put it in a footnote or something.
Sure. It was on miracles. And let me see if I can.
That's what I was thinking.
It's
miracles.
Been years. And so let me see if
miracles.
I can remember this right. I believe the argument went something like this. By definition, miracles are events that break the laws of physics. But since when we're looking around we don't see the laws of physics break, miracles must not happen. How do we know that the laws of physics don't break? Well, because there aren't miracles. And how do we know there aren't miracles? Well, because the laws of physics don't break. So there's a little circle there. Mm-hmm. Like, because we haven't witnessed them right now ourselves, it must never happen, regardless of how reputable the evidence is that, logically speaking, his conclusion could be true. The fact that his argument was circular doesn't mean his conclusion was false. I think something else means his conclusion was false. Right. But the point is, he made a circular argument there that just, it doesn't disprove miracles. You can't say miracles can't happen because miracles don't happen, and miracles don't happen because miracles can't happen.
Right. And I've heard the same type of rejection for the Bible.
Yeah.
Because miracles don't happen. Bible has miracles. Bible's false.
Sure. And then you have...
And that's assuming that miracles don't happen.
Right.
It says because your assumption is found in the text, then the text must be wrong.
Right.
So, pretty cool. Number 8, man, this is like 5 Latin words strung together.
How about post hoc ergo propter hoc?
Post hoc. Come hoc.
Yeah, I haven't seen it phrased that way.
Okay.
It's because I'm talking about something different than he's talking about. I just read his little description.
Oh, okay. So his is cum hoc ergo propter hoc. Fallacy of asserting that events occurring simultaneously must be causally related. So because two things happen at the same time, they're related by cause and effect somehow.
The causes must be related, sure.
So his example, with all these natural disasters happening, how can you deny that God isn't punishing us? To the religious, I guess that does come out.
I hear it.
Hurricane Katrina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, New Orleans, right?
Sure.
Voodoo, all the drinking and debauchery, Fat Tuesday.
We have New Orleans, we have Haiti, we have all these different things happening right around each other. So all these bad things happening right around each other at the same time, similar times, must be because there's the same cause.
I'll throw out another one just because I think it's interesting. It's not a God-related one, but a karma-related one.
Okay.
During 2008, when there was this huge earthquake in Shenzhen, Sichuan, China, I think it was, Sichuan, China had this huge earthquake. Sharon Stone came out and said it's karma against basically the Chinese government. For whatever, atrocities that people are upset with them about.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. That's not even a God one.
Yeah, I think
I respond to this one.
And the more common one, the one I said a minute ago, post hoc, after something, therefore because of it, right?
Gotcha.
That because something follows something else, it's caused by that other thing. They both make the same mistake of assuming causation.
Yeah.
I remember in school studying all sorts of things like the ice cream sales in New York and the crime in any given day in New York follow an amazing pattern where they go up and down together.
So heat drives people insane and they make them buy ice cream.
Yeah, sure. And 6 feet of snow aren't very conducive to getaway cars or ice cream sales.
Yeah.
So and then, hey, on Facebook, I think not too long ago, I ran into a chart of insane correlations where, totally unrelated, like, I don't remember it was ridiculous stuff like mattress sales. It was one with horror movie, ratings or something. I don't remember what it was, but it was just, these mistakes of linking cause with no reason other than timing.
But a butterfly flapping his wings on one side of the world can cause a tsunami on the other. Fact.
It's a fact because you said it's a fact.
I don't know. Okay, so I think that was pretty interesting. Something here that I just reading this for the first time, to be honest. I just grabbed this really quickly online. Just comes to mind Jesus dying on the cross. As he's hanging on the cross, the lights go out. Right?
Sure.
At his death, the curtain
tears
of the into the most holy of holies tears.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the presence of God is now accessible, actually dwelling within us believers. The earthquake, the dead rising.
Yeah, dead people walking around. That's kind of freaky.
That one is actually going to be an episode because people tend to throw out the historicity of that event because only Matthew talks about it.
Sure.
So again, like no one else talks about it, so I can't.
Sure.
I need more people to say it.
The Walking Dead is actually in season 2000.
Yes. So I think that's interesting. That one, I think we can see that these things happening were linked. But I don't know if that's in any way, because I know people make this argument. The lights went out. It's here. It all happened when Jesus died. Therefore, that's proof that Jesus dying on the cross was actually God.
And so, okay, what you're saying is, we can go the other extreme too and deny causation altogether, that there is no such thing as causation. The fallacy is asserting that timing equals causation.
Gotcha.
But there is still such I think there is still such a thing as causation. If you pick up a pool cue and walk up to a pool table and swing your arm back and forward and the tip of the pool cue hits a ball and then the ball starts moving, I'm not going to say what a coincidence. I'm going to say you caused the ball to move by moving the pool cue. There is still causation, and we need to be more careful about deciding what causes what than simply timing.
Gotcha. Well, I know this. Baby boomers, emergence of rock and roll. Has to be related.
Sure.
Okay, number 9. That the religious say that God be gone says is a logical fallacy. Plurium interrogatium.
Interrogationum.
Okay.
Something like that.
Fallacy of demanding a simplistic answer to a complex question. I don't even get this one.
This is a newer one to me. It's on his top 10 list of things Christians use, but it's not on any top 10 list of like fallacies to really make sure you're keen on. But you know what? I don't think that matters because
let me share his example.
Yeah, yeah.
So his example is if God didn't create the universe, then explain what did. Is that even an argument? That's just saying, like, they're just putting the ball in another person's court.
Right. And so, I think
that's just me asking for evidence. Is he wrong?
He's fine pointing out that this is a mistake that we make. I don't like his example very much.
How's it a mistake, though? I'm asking for the best argument. Life coming from non-life. That's not, atheism doesn't, life coming from non-life, not happening. Something coming from nothing, not happening. Best explanation, ultimate source of life given to life. Like, if I have the best explanation and you just don't like it, then give me something better. I feel like that's valid. I mean, isn't that what I'm doing when I make it?
It is. And, well, here's where I think he went. I don't like the example here terribly is,
this is what I'm talking about, where people say I'm making a fallacy, and I'm not always sure, like, this is wrong.
So I say, well, fine. If God didn't create the universe and explain what did in fewer words than the words I used to describe it.
Yeah.
God. Okay, that's not fair. That's what I think he's saying. It's not fair to say, I can explain the universe and everything in it in 3 letters.
Gotcha.
Right.
That would clearly be
let
wrong.
there be blank, right?
Yeah.
Let there be light, let there be. And so can you do it that simply? Okay, sure. If you say, no, it's not God, but you're talking about the universe and everything in it, it's complicated.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to say, okay, it's complicated. Explain, show me.
Yeah.
And then we also jumping all the way back up to number 1. We can't then say, oh, well, you don't have every single answer, therefore I'm right. Okay, that's argument from ignorance. That doesn't necessarily make them wrong.
But they're also, the argument I've heard a lot, and it's not on his list, the way I've heard it put by some, like, let's just say Richard Dawkins. I know I've heard him say this. Maybe it's just too cliche to always go to him. But, he pretty much, when kind of presented this, is just because we don't know the answer now, doesn't mean we won't know how life came from non-life in the future. We will be able to explain it. He's almost saying we will be able to explain it in the future. Science will find the way. And I feel like that's almost, would that be an argument from ignorance or an argument of hope in the sense that you trust that you're going to find a better answer than God? Because right now, you don't have the answer, but there must be something better than God.
Yeah,
and we will find it. Given the time.
I'm trying to remember if the term, is it God of the gaps? Something
like
that.
Yeah, they just like to say we do that.
Yeah, we don't.
I think they do something similar.
Yeah, but what we don't want to do is we don't want to fall in, as Christians, into the trap of simply saying, hey, look, everything you can't explain, I'll explain with God. And then as you figure things out, I'll just kind of dwindle down what I explain with God until eventually, if you figure too much stuff out, I have to find something new.
Yeah.
We don't want to make that mistake. We don't want to say that science can't explain certain things. I think there's, at least in sort of popular history, there's some history of religious movements doing that. You know, trying to claim that science since science doesn't explain it now, it is explained by God in this way. And then when science explains something, the Christian folks are backed into a corner and confused. And, there are conflicting reports about exactly how accurate that is. But that's a problem we don't want to invite.
Yeah.
We don't want to invite that critique that, hey, hang on, you can't write me. Yes, this is correct. We can't write someone off simply because their explanation is complex.
Gotcha. All right, last one, slippery slope fallacy. I hear this all the time. I'm probably accused of this a lot. That's a slippery slope. I think maybe paranoid conservatives fall into always thinking the worst is going to come about.
Sure.
If we allow anything, right? Abortion will lead to post-birth abortion, which will lead to euthanasia, which will lead to Soylent Green as people.
Sure.
And I see it. It's going to happen. Like you can't say it won't because the same arguments can apply to all those other issues I just said.
So the slippery slope is this idea, pattern of looking at arguments and reasoning, and it has the most famous way of putting it is the fallacious one. But
is what I said fallacious?
Well,
because I get what he says. His example, if we let gays get married, it will be the end of family values.
Right, and so
it's not going to necessarily mean families won't exist anymore.
Sure,
they still will. So, but that one I could say is definitely wrong. But what about what I gave? Would that actually still be a slippery slope fallacy? Saying this leads to this, leads to this. Logically, you can't say this is wrong or using your argument.
So the difference is,
we all agree that's wrong now.
The difference you have to make is you have to have reasons. And that's what this comes down to. You can't simply assert that if we let homosexual people get married, then
polygamy,
everything will go
married my sister.
Sure, without reasons. And if there aren't reasons, then don't make the argument. Otherwise, it's this slippery slope fallacy.
Gotcha.
We're just throwing out that as soon as you. Yesterday night there was a music awards show, right? And the people that were in the room with me watching it were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is what they have the people playing. It's not music, it's not musical. Everything has gone downhill since." And everyone in the room placed it in a different place, and no one went all the way back to the
MTV.
Well, no. Nobody went back far enough, right? You could just keep going and going and going and going and going and say, look, Bach didn't write anything that involved booty shaking. So it was, clearly music's been going downhill since we got rid of
headbanging though.
Well,
Okay.
So it's slippery slope fallacy that just we do one bad thing and look here, it's going to get terrible. Well, if you want to say things are going to get bad, explain how. Show me why. Give me reasons. Give me evidence. You can't simply say people are bad, therefore.
Cool.
Done.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. We're going to wrap this one up then. Thanks for being here, Paul. This is Paul Kasaty from, what's the school again? San Diego?
San Diego Lutheran High School.
Awesome. Very cool stuff. And I'm just going to throw out a book in case you want to know more. It's called Smart Faith. J.P. Moreland and Mark Matlock, they have an entire chapter dedicated to facilitating the debate, and a big part of their facilitation is being able to make sure we are using sound arguments, and they have a big list of all these with a lot of explanations on them. So we didn't even get into all the ones that they listed. So pick it up to learn more.
Sure.
And please go ahead and make sure you subscribe to this on iTunes during the first 8 weeks. The more subscribers I get, the better it is, because I'm going to put at least 5 of these episodes on at a time. This will be one of the first 5. And anytime you subscribe, you'll at least get 5 downloads. So that's a good way. If 100 people subscribe in the first week, that's 500 downloads just right off the bat for me by subscribing. More subscribers, more downloads, and that first 8 weeks will get me up to the up and coming or what's new category, which is a lot of free views for me. To get more people to just know about this. And especially if you like what we're doing, every show will be applicable like this. What will you hear? What will you expect? what the best practice is for sharing the gospel. And so please stick with us. The whole goal is to reconnect people with God the Father by sharing Jesus Christ. God bless you all, and thanks for listening.
Your mission, if you choose to accept it, visit contradictmovement.org and order a Contradict sticker today to financially support Reconnect. Thank you for listening, and reconnect us, O Lord.